Yo, what's going on guys, ExtraFusion here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my full review of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War Zombies' brand new map for DLC 3, which of course is Mauer Der Toten. I gave a short first impressions review video a couple days ago, but since then I've played the Easter egg a couple more times, I've played the map casually a couple more times, didn't go for any crazy high round runs or anything, but definitely went into the higher rounds like the 50s and 60s, just to kind of gauge what the map feels like in those rounds, just so I can have a decent opinion on the map for you guys. As always, we're going to go into the pros and cons of all of the four main things that kind of make a zombies map good or bad. That is, of course, the gameplay, the story, the atmosphere, as well as the Easter egg itself. There's tons of other little things that also play important roles, like innovation, for example, and how the game's broader mechanics kind of work within this map itself. Of course, map layout and overall map design, the boss zombies, the wonder weapons. Everything is important to me, and I really do care about everything that is within a zombies map. Some people kind of pick and choose certain things, like maybe some players are just high round runners and they don't care about Easter egg runs, and therefore the map's Easter egg is not going to affect whether or not they like the map. But to make this review fair, I am including everything, but normally as a player, I do enjoy doing mostly everything in zombies. The only thing I don't really enjoy doing is high round runs, but like I said, I'm still going to be including that as a part of the video because it is important for the people who do like to go for high round runs. So let's start this review video talking about the map's gameplay. By far the most important thing to a zombies map is its gameplay. No matter what kind of a player you are, gameplay will impact your experience, unless you're literally just playing for story and you can literally give a rat's ass about the game itself. But even then, the story is only going to be given to you in a fun and enjoyable way if the gameplay is there to kind of lift up that story experience. So gameplay is huge. Let's talk about map layout. The map layout is very nice. I had some issues with it at first until I learned a lot of secret spots where you can rappel up to the roofs. I actually thought originally that there wasn't a rappel from the spawn down below to the streets, and same with one of the buildings next to it. I only thought there was the one rappel in the building with speed colas, so every time I play the map I'm like, oh, it's so annoying trying to go all the way back to spawn. You have to go all the way on the two different zip lines, and it's just a whole sort of process. But then I learned about these other rappel spots. I'm like, oh, why was I complaining? This is perfect. Literally, this map is such a perfect design in my opinion. Even with the bunkers underneath and the sewer areas and the lab, it's perfectly designed. Everything is pretty easy to get to, but the map is still rather big. It's just the way it's laid out makes it so you can get from point A to point B rather quickly. I think it would have been cool if they had maybe another transportation method to get around the map. I was kind of hoping the train would have been something that we could have taken to get to one end of the map to the other, but the train is still utilized in a really fun and unique way. Obviously, we saw it back in Challenge Shuffle, but I think it's even cooler here because of how atmospheric it is. Like when it comes by, you hear screams of people on the trains. It's terrifying, and it's got like flaming zombies that pop out of the windows at some points. This thing will take you out. It's really cool, and I do obviously like how it obviously lets you know when the train's coming, so it's not gonna kill you that often unless you're, just happen to run in front of it at the worst time and you just didn't hear the thing coming. But even then, it makes a really loud vibration feel, so as long as you have vibration on your controllers, you're probably going to know it's coming, and I think it's a really good feature to the map. But everything else about the map, it just feels right. There's a lot of solid training spots, a lot of solid camping spots, but not too many to the point where the map's too easy like you would have in D-Machine or even Firebase Z, where some of the map was just way too open. This one isn't way too open. It has a lot of closer quarters areas, which I do prefer because it makes it so you have to kind of strategize your training methods a little bit more effectively. Now, the setup process on this map is pretty solid. It's not too tedious, and it's also not too simple, so it's at least fun to do, but also can be a little bit challenging for some players when it comes to the larger scope of the setup process. Obviously, it depends what you consider a setup process to be. For me, setting up is just getting everything, right? Everything that you need to survive for higher rounds. So obviously, turning on the power is the first thing you want to do, and that's so easy to do. Turning on power should always be pretty simple, in my opinion. Now, I don't mean simple in terms of like the difficulty. I don't mind it being hard, but in terms of its complication, I don't think it should be that complicated. Although personally, I don't mind it being complicated because obviously I am a pretty hardcore player. Therefore, it's easy for me to learn these things. I have no problem with learning really complicated systems of getting on the power or to get on Pack-a-Punch like you would see in a map like Shadows of Evil. I have no issue with that personally, but of course I have to be a little bit objective here and realize that there's a lot of casual players out there who don't want to try to learn these systems, and they much prefer to just have these things kind of handed to them. And I think Pack-a-Punch and Power are two things that, yes, should probably be handed to the player a little bit easily. Maybe not be really quick to do, but something that'll not require them to use much thought in order to do it. The map basically tells you exactly what to do. You have to kill 2 Tempests, grab electrical fuses from these Tempests, put them into the power station, and then turn on the power. And then to get Pack-a-Punch, all you have to do is kill a Disciple right outside of Pack-a-Punch, which is really simple to do, and boom, Pack-a-Punch is unlocked for you. Very, very simple. Then when it comes to some of these side quests, which can be considered to be part of the setup process because sometimes people like to do these side quests in order to get themselves things that will make it a little bit easier for them to survive a little bit longer. Of course, the main one is the free Wonder Weapon quest, which is really nice how they have this because, of course, there's players who don't want to do side quests in order to get the Wonder Weapon, so they can just hit the box and get it from the box, or they can get it from the challenge trials. But the players like myself who don't want to have to deal with RNG for that long, and we don't mind doing something that's a little bit complicated, you have a little bit of a quest to do. And we've had this for the past 2 maps, and I'm really glad they brought this back. And this little quest here is pretty easy. All you have to do is open up this safe. You need 3 different numbers to open up this safe. It's a 3-digit code, or not 3 digits, but 3 different number code. And you get these numbers from looking at these walls around the map that are in 3 different areas, but you only can look at the number using this purple light, and you have to get this purple light from this little cabinet thing that you have to open up with Klaus. And of course, Klaus is another really cool part to this map, but obviously once you do this, you open up the safe and you can get the Wonder Weapon for free. Now when it comes to Klaus, he's a really fun addition to this map, and obviously you don't need Klaus for everything. You do need him for the Easter egg, but in terms of just playing the map casually, you don't even have to mess with Klaus once. But why the hell not? And it's pretty easy to get him. All you need to do is pick up 3 pieces around the map, which are very easy to get. One of them, you have to just dig them up from the little dig sites in the No Man's Land area, which the dig sites in No Man's Land is pretty damn cool. Also really cool how the No Man's Land area like sort of has a spotlight that goes around, and if you're in the spotlight for too long, the gunners start shooting at you, and you could also turn on the trap, which makes it shoot at the zombies. I really like that No Man's Land area. I think it's really unique and really cool addition to the map, but you have to get 1 piece from the dig sites there. You get another piece from the same room that has the safe in it. You have to get a turned zombie to break open that door in the first place to get in there, and you take the little hands off the little zombie's throat, and that's another part to Klaus, of course. And then the last piece you simply get from killing your first Panzer, which comes round 10. So very simple. And then Klaus you can also upgrade with a multitude of different ways. There's a bunch of different upgrades you can do for him, and again, you don't have to do all of these. Some of them you have to do for the Easter egg, but most of them you don't have to even bother doing. They're just kind of there to make Klaus even better. One of them, you just have to have Klaus get a certain amount of kills. I believe it's like 30 or so kills, and then he just goes back into this little station thing, and you upgrade him, and you have to defend him for like a minute, which is a really fun little step, and it makes him last longer, I believe, and it does a couple other things, like he has a Pack-a-Punch weapon, so now he's going to be more powerful. And then you could upgrade him even further with this hacking device, which I kind of wish they did a little bit more with this hacking device other than just some of the Easter egg steps. It would have been cool if maybe he could like hack the Pack-a-Punch machine, make it cheaper, stuff like that. Maybe kind of like stuff like what Arthur did back in Buried. Imagine if he could like take the teddy bear, or I guess you call it the bunny rabbit, out of the mystery box and maybe make it so the box can't move. I think stuff like that would have been really awesome, but they didn't really go that far with it. Instead, it was just used for some Easter egg steps, but you do need to upgrade him even further with getting 3 pieces around the map. I'm not going to go in depth as to where these 3 pieces are. You guys have probably already know, and I'm sure you've seen guides before. This is not a guide video. This is just a review. There's also a sharpshooter side quest for a free rarity upgrade, although it's kind of annoying how this works because you can't do it without zombies hitting you. Like, please, Treyarch, please, just listen to the community. Nobody wants to do little steps like this where zombies can still hit you during it, especially in a game where it's very hard to make crawlers, and it's also very hard to hold a zombie for a long period of time. Just make it so when we do these little side quests, we can do them without zombies hitting us, because there's this really cool sharpshooter step, but unfortunately, zombies hit you while you're doing it, so you have to, like, do it either in between rounds, which you don't really have enough time to do in between rounds. Zombies will come and start hitting you. Maybe do it really early on. You just have to try to hold a zombie somehow, but sometimes it's really hard to do that. But the little sharpshooter step here, you have to shoot these 5 targets, and you do get a free rarity upgrade on your weapon, which is cool. I do like that. And then the last side quest that we know of right now that at least I want to talk about in this review is, of course, the Coffin Dance Easter egg, which it's not really called Coffin Dance Easter egg in this game, but that's what the community likes to call these Easter eggs. We have one in every single map so far, and this one is by far the best of the 3. The other 2 have been kind of simplistic. The first one, you literally just watch zombies dancing with the coffin, and then it gives you a reward. You don't do anything with it. The second one, you had to actually go around and shoot the bunny in that like giant ass ether field or whatever, dark ether field. It was a lot cooler, I would say, the second one, even though the first one was a lot funnier. The second one was a little bit more interesting, but still gives you the same reward, just a chest with a bunch of stuff in it. And then this one puts you in like a mini boss fight almost in this club, and it is so awesome. I am so happy that it's something cool with this because it's fun. It's really fun, but the issue is it's not worth the reward. I think the reward needs to be better. I'm really disappointed that the reward is just another chest, especially when this is a lot more trickier than the last 2 Coffin Dance Easter egg quests, because those ones, there weren't much to it. You could go in with a pistol, you'd be fine, but this one, you need a decent weapon, or else it's going to be a little bit troublesome, and you might actually fail the thing, because it's timed. You have to kill all the zombies and bosses in this arena in a specific amount of time, so if you don't do it, you fail, and it just sends you back, and you don't get a reward. So you want a decent weapon, so by the time you get a decent weapon, the rewards you see within this quest aren't even that good. They're pretty crappy. It's like, you just get a chest, you get to pick these 3 different doors, and one of them will give you either the large chest, the medium chest, or the small chest. Regardless of which chest you're getting, the rewards are still pretty crappy. The best thing you can get is the chance of like a wonder weapon or like maybe a gold rarity weapon, but I can get those otherwise. I can literally get those from the box really easily. I can get the one weapon insanely easily from that side quest, you know, and most of the time I like to get this good stuff before I even go into this anyways. So what I think they should give you, at least 500 green salvage and at least 250 blue salvage, because green salvage and blue salvage is really hard to get in zombies for some reason. It takes a long time to get. So give us some more of that, because most of the time from these chests we get maybe like at a maximum 100 green salvage and like 50 blue salvage. Like that's the max we'll get. We deserve a lot more than that. We really do. And you get a couple of things, maybe like a couple shields, maybe you get some equipment or something. That's not good. That's not good enough. Give us better stuff. Make it actually rewarding to do these little side quests, and then it'll be more worth doing. It's a lot of fun, so I like doing it anyways, but it's not worth doing for the most part. And now let's talk about the boss zombies. I love the boss zombies on this map. In terms of the new ones, we have the Disciples as well as the Tormentors. Now, those are the only new ones. Panzers and Tempests come back from Outbreak, but they haven't been on round-based maps before, so they're kind of new to round-based maps, but in terms of completely new to us, the Disciples and the Tormentors are the only new ones. I really like them. I think the Disciples don't spawn in too much, but they spawn in just enough in my opinion, because they're not that hard to take out, right? They do spawn in often, I would say, but it's not too much for them specifically because they're not that hard to take out and they're really not that annoying. I see a lot of people saying that they are a problem, but I haven't really had that issue. If you have a wonder weapon or a decent weapon in general, they're not that hard to take out. And I do like how they work, how they kind of infect the zombies around them. They like curse them or something and make them a little bit harder to take out. Just like the water zombies from Black Ops 4, the Catalyst water zombies. I really do like that. And then, of course, you have the Tormentors, which spawn in on special dog rounds and also sometimes spawn in with regular rounds sometimes. But they're just kind of like napalm zombies. They just run at you and blow up, but they don't do that much damage. So they're really not that much of a threat, but they look really cool. They're basically Tempests, but red, and they're fun. I think they're kind of fun. They're kind of cool. Panzers and Tempests, of course, are back. And you also see Manglers here as well, which some people think is a bit overkill, but I'm not really that against it. And then you even see Mimics and Megatons. So basically every boss zombie in Cold War Zombies is here except for I think the dogs, really, when you think about it. We've seen a lot of them, but the Mimics and Megatons only spawn in for specific steps. They're not going to be always there. They're only there for certain side quest steps or even some of the main Easter egg steps as well. The only issue I have with the boss zombies on this map are not the bosses themselves and how they function or any of that, but more so the amount that they spawn in. Not in terms of the Disciples, but mainly for this, I'm talking about Panzers and Manglers. Panzers and Manglers, they spawn in way too much. It's a bit ridiculous. To me, what bosses should be for the most part. Sometimes bosses work fine when they spawn in a lot, but they're easy to take out. But I much prefer it when they have bosses that spawn in not that often, but are difficult to take out, because that not only does it make the boss a lot more intimidating and a lot more fearful, but it makes it more of a rarity to see them. Therefore, they're more special. I feel like Panzers and Manglers, I see them all the time. They're not like a special event. It's not like, holy shit, there's a Panzer, there's a Mangler, there's a Disciple. Even for the Disciples, although like I said, I don't mind them spawning in that much, it would be pretty cool if they didn't spawn in that much, but they were more difficult. Think back to like Origins. Now, Origins, when you get to later rounds, yes, they spawn in a crazy amount of Panzers, but for like, let's say the first 30 rounds at least, you'll maybe get one every couple rounds, right? At least on solo. In this map, you're getting like one Panzer almost every other round, pretty much in like the 20s even. So it's like, holy shit. Sometimes you get two in a round at some points. But back in Origins, it was like an event. It was like, holy shit, the Panzer's here. And it's like a really intense thing. If you have a staff, it's really not that big of a deal. But usually, especially in the earlier rounds, if you don't have a staff, you're like, oh my god, I'm fucked. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's like that even for like the Margwa sometimes on Shadows of Evil even. It's an event. It's like, oh my god, he's here. But for these bosses, they spawn them in so frequently that it's not even special anymore. And I think they need to either take the Disciple or the Panzer, one or the other, and make them more difficult, but spawn in less. Manglers maybe spawn in a little bit less as well, but I don't really know what to do with the difficulty. They're kind of decent how they are, I would say, when it comes to difficulty. But you got to make one of these bosses a little more unique, because to me, they're all kind of the same in terms of they're not that hard to take out if you have decent weapons. But they spawn in way too much. They all do, really. Panzers are definitely the least out of all of them, but they still spawn in way too much. There was one point when I was playing with my buddies. Now, I'm pretty sure this might have been a glitch, because they spawn in like 10 on one round. I mean, there's no way that's fair. There's no way there's fair to spawn in 10 Panzers on one round back to back like that, but it's a bit too much. And lastly, when it comes to gameplay, let's talk about the Wonder Weapon, which of course is the CRBRS, also known as the Cerberus. I love this Wonder Weapon. It's incredibly awesome and incredibly unique, but there is a big problem I have with it in terms of the power of it. The issue I have is that the base variant of it is better than the upgrades. Like, what kind of Wonder Weapon is that, where the upgrades are weaker than the base variant? Now, I think the easy fix here is to just make the upgrades better. Just buff them. You need to buff them like crazy, because they're good for like the first like 30 rounds, but then when you get past that, pretty much every other version other than the basic variant is not that good, and you're better off just using the regular one, and that kind of makes it a little bit less enjoyable because you don't care about the upgrades, and there's a lot of cool upgrades that are really fun to use in the early rounds. Of course, we have the Swarm variant, which kind of makes it this like launcher shotgun like thing where it launches these like little missiles out and it locks on if you aim down sights. That one's probably the best one out of all the upgrades. You also have the Blazer, which is kind of like the EM1 from Advanced Warfare. It just shoots out this laser beam that's just kind of like, this directly impacts the zombies, and it's pretty fun, but it's not that great. And then you have the diffuser as well, which the diffuser is kind of like the claw from Infinite Warfare, where it shoots a bunch of split bullets in this horizontal pattern, but it's really weak though. All they need to do is just buff these upgrades, and then I think this Wonder Weapon would be perfect, but as is, it's still a really cool Wonder Weapon, and I do really enjoy using it. So let's talk about that main quest, shall we? It's definitely the best quest in Cold War Zombies, but does that mean it's one of the best quests ever? No, not necessarily. It still has a lot of the same issues I have with other Cold War Zombies Easter eggs, where the steps don't really take much thought. There's not much brain power needed to do them. I'm not talking about the hunt itself, because the hunt itself was pretty fun, but in terms of just redoing it again and again, there's not much of a change in how you do it. You kind of do it the same way every time. Of course, in terms of speedrunning, you might find ways to make it a little bit faster, but there isn't much thought needed. A lot of it is kind of fetch questy and very simplistic steps, and it's pretty quick as well. You can do it within like 30 to 40 minutes pretty easily, so I'm a little disappointed there. But the Easter egg itself is still a massive step up from prior Cold War Easter eggs, so let's talk about it. So for the first step, all you have to do is get Klaus to go to this giant brick wall and kind of smack into it, and it'll kind of open up this little other wall that's on the other section of this brick wall, and you have to use the Cerberus upgrade called the Blazer to shoot it down, and it opens up this secret lab room. The secret lab room is really cool, one of the coolest parts of the Easter egg, being able to unlock another section of the map. I really would love to see more steps like this in future Easter eggs, where we unlock different sections of the map as we go throughout the Easter egg. Even like big sections would be really cool, not just like rooms like this, but this is probably one of the biggest rooms we've ever unlocked throughout an Easter egg quest ever, which again, really damn cool. It's also used for the boss fight later on. You have to grab these 3 canisters as well as this lure device, and then you have to go to these 3 different green devices around the map, use the canisters in each of these 3 devices, throw the lure device down, and the lure device will attract tempests, and you have to kill 3 tempests in front of this little green machine, and it'll charge up the sort of a canister that you put within it. Then you have to take each of these 3 canisters back to the lab, and boom, you're done with the first step of the Easter egg, which is pretty much like half of the Easter egg already done, which is pretty crazy. Then you have to get Klaus to stop the train after upgrading him, and after he stops the train, you have to grab Rico's keycard on the train as well as the bomb. This part's really cool. I love being able to stop the train with Klaus, but this step can be a little wonky sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't work properly, and there's a couple glitches with some later steps we'll talk about as well that get really frustrating. But then once you get the keycard and the bomb, you have to activate the satellite twice. You have to do it in 2 different computer locations, and the satellite will shoot down these megatons as well as 2 mimics in 2 different spots on the map. You have to kill the megaton in order to get uranium from the megaton. Now we need uranium in order to charge the bomb that we're going to be using within the lab, as well as with those 3 canisters. And when you have to get the uranium, you have to get 2 pieces from the 2 different megatons that split. So you have to pick each of them up, and you have to craft the uranium device, and then craft 2 of these uranium devices, put them on each ends of the zip line, have them crash into each other, and boom, you get one last piece of the uranium, and you take that last piece and you bring it down to the lab, and you have to do that twice, 2 different times. And then once you're done with that, you're in the boss fight. Like, when I just say it right there, you see how quick I was able to go through basically the entire Easter egg quest? It's a pretty short quest. Now, when it comes to the step where you have to craft the uranium device, my god, this might be the buggiest step in Call of Duty Zombies history, at least for me personally. The reason why I don't like talking about bugs and glitches within reviews is because bugs and glitches are very subjective to your personal experience, because there's tons of bugs and glitches some people will never experience, while others might experience time and time again. You look back to Black Ops 4's launch, remember when everyone was complaining about blue screens, and that's still to this day the biggest complaint, or one of the biggest complaints with Black Ops 4 Zombies as a whole, is how broken it was at launch with all the, the bugs and the crashing and stuff. Personally, I only crashed once at all, like once, and that was in custom mutations when I spawned in like 50, I think it was 50 Brutuses on Blood of the Dead or something like that. That's obviously going to crash the game, so that wasn't surprising to me, but besides that, never crashed another time, yet everyone else was. So my experience wasn't affected by those glitches, but this time, for at least Mauer Der Toten, I'm experiencing a ton of bugs and glitches, and it's definitely an issue, it's definitely something to mention, but it's not something that'll affect the map in a massive way. Now, of course, after you do all this, that's when you head to the boss fight, and I gotta say, the boss fight on this map is by far one of the best boss fights in Call of Duty Zombies history. I think it is the best part of this map, and I really wish this game had a boss battles mode, because I would love to replay this boss fight again and again and again with using all sorts of different weapons without having to actually do the steps beforehand. But the steps aren't that hard, so I guess it's not that big of a deal, but this boss fight is really solid. One of my biggest issues with the Firebase Z boss fight is that it was simply just a bullet sponge that you just put a bunch of bullets into, and that's it. You don't really change up with anything. There's no like waves or anything like that. There's no stages to the boss fight. The attacks are very simple and generic, but this boss fight takes everything to a whole nother level. Now, it's not really a hard boss fight. I've seen some people say it's difficult, and I'm sorry to say it, but if you think this boss fight's difficult, maybe you're not the best at zombies, and that's not trying to be mean, that's just me trying to be as honest as possible, because it's not that hard of a boss fight. It is pretty easy to do if you have the wonder weapon. If you're not using the wonder weapon, it might be a little tricky here and there, but at the end of the day, especially on solo, it's a pretty easy boss fight, but at least it provides more of a challenge than what Firebase Z's boss fight provided, and that's one thing I definitely do enjoy about it. I love how it takes you from different areas instead of just staying within that one lab room the entire time. It starts in the lab room, but then it takes you to about 3 or 4 other locations around the map, and all you have to do is just simply shoot at her, shoot her shield down, and once her shield is down, you can actually, she's exposed, and you can actually shoot Valentina with whatever weapon you want, and you can kind of tell when she's, you're able to shoot her at some points. She'll do some sort of attacks. She has a lot of different attacks. They're really cool. She has these yellow crystal attack, which is probably the most deadly attack she does. She shoots these yellow crystals at you. Normally when she does that, you want to just get to cover. She does this blue blast, which just does this massive, she kind of charges it up and just blasts out this thing that will down you if you're close to it. It's kind of like the Keeper from Der Eisendrache, which makes you want to have to, get to cover, which I like how it kind of plays with your gameplay a little bit there, where you can't just feel safe, just training around the middle. You kind of have to hide behind cover just in case she does one of those 2 attacks. Another one of her attacks is she spawns in the Tormentors and they just all come in. It's not really a big attack because the Tormentors are not that hard to take out, but it still is a pretty cool attack. It kind of makes the whole atmosphere turn red, just like it does on these specific Tormentor rounds. And another sort of thing she does, not really an attack, but she can actually spawn zombies that summon up, and she kind of sucks the souls out of them in order to gain more health. So this is really cool, and if you shoot the zombies out of the sky, they will obviously not give her health anymore. So all these attacks are really awesome. Panzers will also spawn during this, same with Manglers, even some Disciples. So it's a pretty hectic boss fight, and it's a lot of fun. The boss fight music is also incredible as well. One hell of a boss fight, and you end in the lab again, and after you kill her, she falls to the floor. You have to capture her, and then you kind of hook her up to this device. And then you get another little part right after as well, where you have to escort Klaus with the bomb. He's holding the bomb, and he has to walk the bomb into the portal to kind of blow it up. And that is just really awesome. I absolutely love that little ending there. Now, what would have been a lot cooler, and this is kind of just a nitpick here, this is not really a big complaint, this is more of a missed opportunity. How much cooler would it have been if at the end of that boss fight, we actually got to fight Kravchenko in the helicopter? Because in the cutscene, you leave and you head outside, and then Kravchenko's out there in the helicopter. When I first did this, I was so excited because I'm like, holy shit, they're about to give us another boss fight. And unfortunately, it was just a cutscene. You just kind of run to the portal that Samantha summons on the other side. I would have been in love with this boss fight. It would have been probably the best boss fight ever if they gave us another little Kravchenko boss fight there, where he's in the helicopter and you have to kind of shoot him down or something like that. Maybe you have to do some sort of damage to it while there's also some zombies coming at you. Obviously he wouldn't die because Kravchenko can't die, so you just kind of knock down, well, he can't die, but you know what I mean, for the story's sake, he can't die. You knock down the helicopter or something and he gets away. But having a boss fight there would have just been the cherry on top. I've seen some people say that would be overkill, be too long. I don't think the boss fight itself was that long anyways, so I would have absolutely no issue with an extra stage to it. Maybe an optional stage, maybe just have some players not do it, and other people can, I don't know. I still think we should really get a map that allows you to keep playing the game after the boss fight's completed, or after the Easter egg's completed. We haven't had something like that since Garad Krovi, I think, when it comes to Treyarch maps. So I would love for that to happen, but unfortunately it's another Easter egg that ends the game and you can't continue, which I get story-wise, that makes sense, but again, don't let the story get in the way of gameplay. Let us continue the match, damn it, that would be awesome. But as a whole, the Easter egg in this map is good. It's not the best Easter egg ever. I think the boss fight is what really makes it that good, but the steps themselves are still kind of what you're used to from seeing from most Cold War maps. They're kind of simplistic, they're not that difficult to do. You really don't need a brain to do them, to be honest. But this one, at least they're a little bit more advanced, and the boss fight definitely makes up for any complaints I have for any steps, because the boss fight is incredible. Now when it comes to atmosphere, this is something I almost hear no one talking about ever, but it's very important to me. Atmosphere gives maps personality, and so far I felt like Cold War has kind of been missing some of that personality a little bit. but Mauer Der Toten by far has the best atmosphere of the 3 maps. In terms of just the look of the map, there is so much awesome detail put into every little bit of this map. If you just walk around it and just kind of take it all in, it's gorgeous looking, not only in terms of the graphics, but also just in terms of the detail in each individual room and area of the map. It really gives you that Berlin 80s vibe that it's going for. The set design, it's just incredible. It is such a well-designed map when it comes to the look of it. There's a lot of nice colors here and there as well. The lighting is incredible. There's some dark areas below that kind of add to that creepiness, especially before you turn on the power. And of course, you need to use a flashlight in order to actually see, otherwise it's going to be pitch black. When you turn the power, it still gives some light down there, but it's still rather dark. But the lighting is just so intelligently placed. And then even up above, because it's a night map, it still is pretty dark in a lot of areas. But when you have light shining in little areas, it looks really good, especially in the bar. The bar is one of my favorite locations in the entire map. There's actually 2 bars. Both these bars look really cool. It's just the way the light kind of shines off of the bottles on the light. It's gorgeous. Now, there still is a bit of an issue with Cold War and how they like to reuse a lot of old music for their maps, but this one does have a lot more new original music than any other previous Zombies map thus far. Big issue I had with Firebase C and D Machine is that a lot of the music on those maps were ripped straight from the campaign, like literally straight from the campaign, and I was so disappointed with that because music's really important to these maps. It gives them personality, it gives them a sort of a distinct feel to them, and unfortunately those maps just reuse a lot of music from prior stuff, from either the campaign or other stuff. But Mauer Der Toten has a lot of original music. Still not enough with what it should have like it did in Black Ops 3 and 4, but it definitely has more, which is great. And some of the music that they do reuse is pretty good. Like they reuse the round stinger for the special round, which they use in D Machine. I think it's a good round stinger. I'm not really against them reusing that one. They also reuse the Alpha Omega boss fight music within the little sequence where you have to turn on the Pack-a-Punch and you have to fight that disciple. I'm not against that either. It doesn't really make sense, like in terms of the story or anything like that, because there's no really connections to the disciples and the Avogadro or anything, so like I don't really know what's the point there, but maybe there is a deeper connection that I don't know of. I have no idea, but it's good music, so I'm not against it. But then when it comes to the original music that they have added, it's incredible. You have a lot of just good background music that plays in different areas of the map. You have the music that plays during the boss fight, which is incredible. Some of the best music I've heard in Zombies in a long time. You have the music that plays during the Disco Bunny Easter egg side quest. You have music that plays, obviously, the other round changing music. You have also the map song, which is Amoeba, which is a song from the 80s. Unfortunately, we didn't get a Kevin Sherwood song this time around, which is unfortunate, but I'm not going to make that a negative because it's not really fair to make that a negative. Kevin Sherwood came out on Twitter and did say that he wasn't able to have enough time in order to write a song for this map, so I'm not going to hold that against him. But what I think they could have done to make up for that is not only have one new song, which it's a licensed song from the 80s, why not give us a couple more? You know what I mean? Maybe do something like what Spaceland did, where you have music that's consistently playing throughout the map. Maybe there could be a music player somewhere. I know they have a music player within the menus, but I'm talking about like an actual physical music player on the map itself that maybe plays throughout the speaker systems in the Berlin streets. Maybe let us put a music disc and a music player or something like that, maybe a cassette tape or something, and it plays throughout the Berlin streets and we can choose different 80s songs. They already have a bunch of licensed 80s music within the war tracks in Cold War. Why not let us utilize these songs in Zombies? I don't understand why they won't let us do that. They're already there for us. How cool would that be if we can just pop a bunch of different songs, like a jukebox maybe, I don't know, but let us play it throughout the entire map like you would in a map like Spaceland back in Infinite Warfare. That would be amazing. That would completely make up for the lack of a new song by Kevin Sherwood, in my opinion. Being able to listen to all these amazing 80s songs in this cassette player that plays throughout the entirety of Berlin, that would add so much to the atmosphere. It would be like, I don't know, it would just be awesome. I think for me, that would be great. I know streamers wouldn't really care because they don't want the copyright strikes that they would probably get for that music, but for someone who's just playing casually, why the hell not? It's awesome. As a whole, the atmosphere is really great in this map, but it definitely isn't as good as what you would get in maps from Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 and most of the Black Ops 2 maps. It still hasn't reached that level yet, but it's definitely a lot better than what Cold War has had before with Firebase C and D Machine. And lastly, when it comes to the story on Mauer Der Toten, I'm definitely not the one to talk about story mostly, because story, at least in Cold War, is not something I've been following very closely. But from what we can see from the Easter egg and from the cutscenes and such, and from the little stuff I do know from the intel, I do think the story is building up nicely for Cold War. And I think for the fans of good stories within zombies, they do like a lot of what Cold War has to offer. I don't think it's as cinematic and as exciting as it was back in Black Ops 3 and even Black Ops 4, but that's because it's a very new story to us. Obviously, we have some stuff from the previous story that came, over, but obviously it's a lot of new stuff, and because it's a new chapter, right? It's a whole new chapter in this storyline, and I do think once they start making more connections to the old story, that's when everyone will start to get a little bit more interested. Obviously, we have Maxis right now, a couple other characters from like the campaign and such, but I think when they start getting a little bit more crazy with what's going on, that's when everyone will get very much invested. The only issue is I feel like we're not that far into the story, yet we're almost done with Cold War Zombies. We have maybe one map left, maybe a couple more if they do some Zombies Chronicles thing, but how is that going to connect back to the story? I don't know. We obviously might have another Outbreak Easter egg as well, but you got to realize, like, there's not much left here. Now, of course, we'll get a sequel, I'm sure. We'll get another Treyarch game in a few years, and that'll continue the story. I'm sure maybe even Infinity Ward's game will continue the story. I've been hearing rumors that Vanguard will be a prequel to this story, which wouldn't really continue it forward. It would continue it backwards unless they did some time travel thing. Then I guess it could continue it forward in some, connected way. But they really aren't going that far with everything, I feel like. But there is still a lot to enjoy from it, and I do think that, especially with how this map worked, with you kind of having to work with Omega and then Kravchenko, betraying you at the end after you were working with him, it has some interesting story beats to it. But I do think not having a set crew on the map, not having specific characters that you're playing as, and just playing as the operators, definitely makes me less interested in the story. I think most people would agree with me on that. So as a whole, Mauer Der Toten is a great addition to Black Ops Cold War Zombies, by far the best part of Black Ops Cold War Zombies currently. Of course, the map's only been out for almost a week now, so it's kind of one of those things where it can definitely get worse over time. D Machine and Firebase C are two maps that have decreased in my enjoyment over time. I gave D Machine an 8 out of 10 and Firebase C a 7.5 out of 10 after my first week of playing them, and right now I would probably give D Machine like a 6 out of 10 and Firebase C like a 7 out of 10. So those scores dropped over time, and it's very possible that this map will as well. But as it is currently, I would give Mauer Der Toten an 8.5 out of 10 for my score, which is pretty damn good. If you compare that to other maps, I'd probably give like Revelations like an 8.5 out of 10 as well, and Revelations was around my number 13 or 14 spot on my ranking of every single Zombies map. So that means Mauer Der Toten would be pretty much within the top 15, and that's pretty damn good. It's still not higher than the maps like Der Eisendrache and Shadows of Evil and Buried and Origins and all those greats, but it's close. It's definitely close, and I think it's definitely a step up, and hopefully the next round-based experience in Cold War can even go higher than Mauer Der Toten, but we'll have to wait and see. It really does depend on the gameplay fundamentals, the Easter egg, and of course the atmosphere and story is very important as well, although I definitely hold those to a lesser importance than the gameplay and the Easter egg. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on Mauer Der Toten in the comment section below, and give it a scoring out of 10. I will see you guys on my next video. Peace out.